Welcome to the Voice of the Coast. I am your host, Danika Foley. With me, we have Dr. Teresa Bagwell, who is the superintendent of St. Mary Parish Public Schools. And we're not going to start off with COVID. I mean, usually it's like go right into it. We're not doing that. We're going to actually start on something that you and I were talking. I said, I saw the kids getting out of school midday. I call you, hey, what's going on? Did I miss a holiday? What's going on? But it was actually Parent-Teacher Conference Day. And my question to you, I really just am just curious about the conferencing. Once they're out of school at 12, so you kind of have a small window, like 2:30, 3 o'clock before teachers are going home, to conference with teachers. I mean, does that really work? And what's the protocol for calling parents to meet with them?
Well, truthfully, we don't want parents to wait until Parent-Teacher Conference Day to get in touch with their child's teacher if they feel like the child's experiencing difficulties. The purpose of the set-aside Parent-Teacher Conference Days is to link them with the release of progress reports so that parents and students have an ample opportunity to learn of any decline in student performance that might put them in danger of failing, and have time and opportunity to change that behavior, or study more, or find out exactly what it is that the child's doing poorly on. So we encourage parents to reach out to their teachers and teachers to reach out to parents anytime there is an issue that a child needs, maybe just some support, extra support at home, or support in the classroom. The state does require that school systems have 2 parent conferences in what we call the fall semester, and then we added the one in the spring. We link them again. We started using the idea of linking them to the progress report, where we could offer more parent-teacher conference days, partial days. And like I say, the first priority is the kids who are failing or in danger of failing, but we talk to schools, and schools understand that there's a need. If a kid's failing, that conference should happen way before an actual set-aside day.
And there's also something else that parents can tap into that we didn't have, at one time, was Microsoft Teams. So the parent has access to talking to those teachers through the computer, pretty much.
Correct. They can go through virtual means. They can still go through a phone call, obviously. But the teacher can actually set up a virtual meeting through Microsoft Teams to meet with a parent and show them work, or show them aspects of the classroom that they're teaching that their particular child's having difficulty with.
Let's talk about virtual. I mean, we started off the school year with a lot, of students that were taking virtual, and it just seemed like they started to trickle back into the classroom for that in-person instruction. What's the numbers looking like now? And what are some of the statistics that you found? Does virtual really help, or is it really not very efficient?
Statistically, right now, we have about 120 students who continue to be what we call all virtual. Now, we've run a virtual program for St. Mary Parish Schools for a number of years, but it's only been roughly 30 to 50 kids in any given year. So this year certainly is an anomaly, but after the fall semester ended in January, we were able to reassess some of those students, and those students that were doing very poorly, contact was made with a parent, not to say that it hadn't been on a weekly basis, and in some cases a daily basis. But it was really a good time to reflect on whether or not a virtual option was the best educational option for a child. So by coming up with those midterm grades and seeing the activity in those virtual classes, it was an opportunity for schools and district staff to talk to parents and just have a heart-to-heart and say, maybe a virtual option's not the best idea for your child. And so we got a number of kids who came back on campus after January, which again whittled our numbers down a little bit more.
Now, just to be honest, I think when we first started talking, I said, oh, you got to watch out for, the cheater. You got to watch out for the kid who just, is not in attendance, whose lack of attention. Were you finding maybe that may have been the issue, that there was just really lack of supervision, that's why the grades weren't reflecting of really the student's potential?
I think the biggest drawback to virtual is that it is a lack of attendance, a lack of logging on. And honestly, a parent who's even sitting next to a child supervising their activity may not be able to genuinely teach them. I mean, I use myself as an example. I've told you before, you don't want me teaching your child third grade math,
Right.
but a parent not maybe understanding, we've all done homework with our parents and the parents, we're like, no, you can't do it that way. But that's what the teacher said.
Yeah.
So virtual certainly has drawbacks in the sense that you can't ignore it. You can't put the laptop on the table and never log on,
All right, thank you for that. I mean, this kind of addresses some of those issues. So come on back right here on the Voice of the Coast. We have much more to come. Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. I am your host, Danika Foley. With me, we have Superintendent of St. Mary Parish Public Schools, Dr. Teresa Bagwell. Something I really haven't talked about, especially in depth on this show, is the uniform policy. And you're saying, well, why are you going to talk about the uniform policy? It's already in effect. However, as I was just jokingly telling you, you're going to have a Coco Chanel on your stylist team because the fashion of these students are changing all the time. I actually had to catch on because the different color socks was a thing. I just thought all the kids couldn't find matching socks. The washer dryer was eating up the socks or something. But that's a fashion, and that's something that I'm sure you guys have had to address. Also addressing the teacher uniform policy. I'm kind of curious to know why you need to update that. So let's take the student policy and some of the recommendations that have been made.
Okay, so the St. Mary Parish School Board has a uniform policy committee. So our uniform committee met. It included school board representatives, a representative from local merchants, and some parents and school administrators, as well as district personnel. And essentially, it was necessary for us to update the school uniform policy because at the time that it was written very generically, and things have changed, like you said. There were things listed on the policy that no one even knows what that is anymore, So the school board hosted the committee, and some of the main recommendations are that students in grades K through 2 would be allowed to wear shorts or skirts or pants that have elastic waistbands. That was not in our policy before, but certainly is necessary for our little ones. Our students at B. Edward Boudreaux and West St. Mary who attend school on the same school campus, there was a delineation made in the colors of shirts that they could wear. So we opened that up a little bit where the BEB students would be able to wear the white or the navy blue like every other student in a middle school, and then the West St. Mary students would only wear their school colors. Okay. That piece of the policy already existed where high school students actually have the option to wear their polo shirt in a school color as opposed to the navy blue that K through 8 kids wear. We also had to identify things like jeggings that were not even thought of when this policy was first written. And then we also added the caveat about masks. That was included in another policy that was written at the beginning of the year when we first needed to institute mask wearing at the schools. But the policy refined a little bit about what options students have for mask colors and designs, and then also made it part of the dress code where now if a student doesn't have a mask, that would be used as part of the code of conduct.
That is so interesting that this is where we are. The mask is pretty much, kind of like you forgot your belt.
Correct.
And also, we're just talking about the socks, and that's one way kids really kind of express their, their uniqueness, their individuality. They're like, we already got to wear a uniform, so maybe I'll do something that kind of sets me apart from everybody else. So now you have the mask where they can probably sew their own mask. They can put their personality on there. So that's kind of you've had to kind of curb that.
You have to be kind of careful with some of the things that they might sew on that mask.
And you have to keep up with the trends. You got to keep
Right.
up with what's popular, because you may see something and you say, oh, that's cute, and it may represent something else.
We actually had a student, a young student, who came with a mask one day, and the principal asked them about the saying that was on the mask, and he'd gotten the mask from his teenage brother.
Yeah.
So he had no idea what that meant,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So that's interesting. Now we have just a few minutes, or actually maybe a minute left.
Okay.
Oh, well, 30 seconds. I'm hearing it in my ear. But I want to talk about the teacher uniform policy. I never thought that was a thing per se, because as I was expressing to you, my mom being a former teacher, and look, I want you to leave comments. We will also post this on YouTube, because I want to hear from teachers, because they may say, oh, Danika, you're antiquated. But my mom always said that a teacher should dress set apart from the students. So the way you're dressed, the way that I'm dressed, that was her style back in the day. But I know things have changed since then. So we're going to talk about that when we get back. Come on back right here on the Voice of the Coast, because I want to hear from you, okay? Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. Again, I'm your host, Danika Foley, Superintendent of St. Mary Parish Schools. Dr. Teresa Bagwell is our guest. And we were just finishing up talking about the uniform policy recommendations. Now there's kind of some revisements that are going on, or revisions. And you have some revisions that are going to take place for the teacher uniform policy. I expressed myself and said how my mother back in the day, she's a retired educator, and the way she dressed, as opposed to how teachers today. And I think the reason was, I'm just going to explain myself first. I think it was because during my day, we didn't have uniforms. I think they imposed uniforms a little bit, right after I graduated. And it was easier to tell who was a teacher and who was a student. So tell me what's the new policy for teachers as far as their uniform is concerned?
Well, we don't have a new policy yet, but we are going to send it off to be updated. And our current teacher professional dress code policy actually includes the fact that teachers need to wear stockings.
Ooh.
So it is a little old. It includes phrases like squirts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't,
yeah.
let me tell you something,
Remember
I don't even wear stockings anymore, even to church.
So we want to look at some of the policies that other school systems have that have been recently updated, and just see, like what changes are out there and what we might want to include in our updated version of the professional dress code policy.
Do they even make skirts anymore? I don't think so. And stockings. Well, my mom actually still wears stockings. But I believe in slips. I know y'all gonna come for me in those comments. I know they're coming for me, but that's okay. I welcome it. I want you guys to get involved. So again, just as a reminder, this will also air on YouTube. It's KWBJ Live, in addition to watching it on KWBJ. So let's move past that.
Okay.
And I just want to reflect on 2021. I mean, another pandemic graduation, pretty much going to be in the books. We're in March right now. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Are the students just like, another year?
I mean, honestly, I think that the students this year are going to be a lot more open to it than the students last year. Last year was just, are we even going to get to have a graduation? And so I think we learned a lot from the way it was done last year. I honestly think that some students preferred the outdoor activity. It's, the danger with outdoors is just the weather, But definitely we will have graduation ceremonies. The governor moved us into phase 3 on Thursday. So we're ready to go with graduation. There are, I think, a couple of schools who may be looking at still continuing an indoor activity, but that is going to totally depend on the phase, the restrictions. People want to come to graduation. So if you have to offer graduation in an indoor setting, then you have to significantly limit the number of people who can attend. And, so some people would prefer host it outside so that, more of their family members can be a part of it.
And usually around May, we have really good weather. We have it, I think last year kind of went off pretty smoothly. I know, Louisiana. But one thing that the kids are not getting, and that is really the socialization. They are missing out on prom and just different dances. And what I don't really joke about it, but I think what's going to happen to these kids 5, 10, 15 years from now? What is a class reunion going to look like? Are we going to be doing class reunions? I think by that time we'll be away from
I think they could have their
but-
prom at their class reunion.
That's true. But then there's the socialization. It may still be awkward. I'm sorry. This is just things I think about. I don't want you to, hey, come for me. That's all right. I can handle it. So with that said, you also now have the rolling out of vaccinations. So I'm going to give the date. Today is the 5th. So we started to see vaccinations go out earlier this week. What was the response from the teachers?
So we sent out a survey a couple of weeks ago, and I simply asked our staff how many people would be interested in vaccinating. And we also sent them research on the Moderna because we thought that would be the one that we would receive. It seemed to be the one shipping out. So we have about 270 who initially said they would be interested. And so this week on Tuesday and Thursday, we actually vaccinated roughly 240 teachers, staff members, at 2 different sites, one here in Morgan City and one in at West St. Mary, the satellite office for TESH Action Clinic. So we partnered with TESH. We had a combination of TESH Action Clinic personnel and school board personnel running each site, and we, Miss Lydia Duval, can't say enough great things about her, but she organized it, set it up, and it was operational within just a week and a half when we found out the vaccine was going to be ready to go, and we got our teachers and our staff members through. So we're real excited about that.
Well, definitely want to talk about it when we come back. We have just one last segment, so come on back to the Voice of the Coast. Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. Let's just get right to it. I think we have about 4 minutes, and I want to get it all in. So, of course, we ended talking about the vaccinations. So that was just round one. We know the vaccinations, except for the Johnson & Johnson supply, you need 2 rounds.
Right.
So the teachers have already gotten their first round.
Correct.
There
So
will be a second round, probably the next 21 days.
Right. They'll go back the first week of April.
Okay.
They already have their dates. And then we do have some teachers who expressed interest post-survey that we were able to get in, but then once we organized the vaccination sites, we had additional teachers who requested vaccinations. So we actually are working with Ochsner and TESH Action Clinic. They're offering several dates for educators to now get vaccinated. And like you said, we have 3 options now. So the vaccine availability is certainly there, which helps a lot to get everybody through who want to take the vaccine.
Yeah. Let's just talk about COVID spread, period. I mean, and has it had much effect on the school system?
Honestly, once we got through that holiday rush after New Year's and Christmas, once we got to the end of January, the COVID positivity rate has really gone down in the community. And that's where it was happening. We were getting that community spread, and then once someone on a campus was testing positive, then we were having to quarantine the people they were around and monitor them and stuff like that. But fortunately, we have never gotten to a point where we traced back a COVID transmission between people at school. It was all within the community. So our schools have done just a phenomenal job.
Now, I will say, I have seen some students out, and I'm like, what time is it? So you may have had some students that were, because of the exposure, they had to leave school.
Right, they had to quarantine. Now, fortunately, the CDC and Region 3 Public Office of Public Health reduced the number of days that people had to quarantine, so that if a student was sent to quarantine and they tested negative, by day 7, they could return to school. So that was a huge help in limiting the amount of time a child was out of school. But like I said, fortunately, in the last month, it has reduced quite a lot from where it was.
This is the last question here. There's something new that the school board is going to roll out, and that's the summer enrichment program.
Right. We're in the beginning stages of planning a summer camp-like enrichment program for our students in the elementary grades. We really want to be able to offer them some adventure in education over like around 2 to 3 weeks once school is out, and it'll be a project-based learning activity. It will include arts and crafts and PE and all those fun things in addition to learning. So we're at the very, very beginning of the planning stages, but parents can look forward to a flyer coming out within the next month or so detailing the program. It'll be completely voluntary, but we're really excited. We think that we can offer something to the kids and bring out some aspects of teachers, hobbies and things that they weren't able to teach in the classroom, and they can integrate it with the learning aspects.
And quick question here, is this going to be virtual or in person?
It'll be in person.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, we are done. We're done with this interview as well as always. Make sure to come back, and make sure you guys come back as well. Subscribe to us on Facebook. We are KWBJ TV 22. Y'all take care.